into town to be at Pepper State. It was a whole, all of a sudden the store was like, people were just, it was clearly deadheads, right? The whole store, you got a lot of, tie dye, a lot of like, yeah, for sure. Beard heads, deadheads, all of them.
It's like when you have a school event, kids will bring out the crowd. In this case, awards brings out the crowd. I don't remember if it was last year the Lions Club did it or not.
Oh, Bessie. Then they got a new one.
Nobody got an award last year. Yeah, you got a shot.
Some of them might not like
Like I used to. Like me. I know. Old days. When I was funny, I thought, who needs to see so much salt?
That's the reason.
It's just the way it is, right?
Second that. All right, at 7 p.m., we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pulaski.
Here.
Trustee Berkshire.
Here.
Trustee Delapenna.
Here.
Trustee Domke.
Here.
Trustee Lanisa is absent. Trustee Prokowski.
Here.
Trustee Trejo.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Move to presentation of the prepared agenda. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. We'll now move to Village Board public comment. Anyone wishing to provide comment on a topic or an agenda item may address the Village Board during public comment and the public hearing segments of the Village Board agenda by submitting comments in advance, using the online form, or during the meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any submitted in advance?
None submitted in advance, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in the audience here tonight that wishes to speak? Yes, sir. Please approach the podium and state your name.
Let me just say, Pastorino, I don't know if this topic is a different thing, I'm just saying. Something about the Devon and Roselle Road. There's a big mess over there every time when trying to walk across. I speak last year, same matter, I was told that it costs too much money to put a light. So it's something else could be addressed there to make it easy to go across from Devon through to go to the pond, because go walk all the time over there. And just last week, I almost got hit with a car. There was a van on the front, and the car was behind it. The car just went past the other side to almost hit me. So, is anything that could be done to not create a mess or somebody get killed?
And okay, thank you. And just to be clear, you're talking about the Roselle Road and Devon intersection,
Right,
correct?
intersection. There's a lot of people walking across there. I do every day. I do. It's pretty dangerous. You got to watch out because it's the hill and the car, they're going fast and it's too late when they come.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, so Karen, could you raise your hand real quick? So this is Karen Young. She's our Director of Public Works. I'd love for you to share your contact information so she could follow up with you. Karen, at this time, is there anything that you can address on that matter?
That would be having to be something that we would talk to with GPH County, as it is a county route. So we'll make sure to share that information with them, and I'll make sure to speak with them after the meeting.
Thank you. And it's been raised, and I think that's something that we've definitely been in discussions with the county on it. There's also the other intersection further down from the hill that we've also been talking about. But if you don't mind just giving her your contact information to Karen, she can follow up and provide you updates as we have more information.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to make a comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to officials and staff reports. Tonight, I have the fortunate task of having a lot of recognition to provide. First, we'd like to honor and recognize our Roselle Sister Cities Association. So earlier in at late September, right, Wayne? Am I getting my dates right? Our association was awarded the Sister Cities Association of the State Awards out of all of Illinois. So this is a great honor for our humble community to receive this honor. And I know it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on behalf of the committee. And we've got a fantastic group of local residents. So Joan, do you want to come up, or the group, whatever you'd like to? Feel free to share a little bit about the story. I know there's a lot of new activities going on. You've got a Germans friendship committee formed and an Italian friendship committee formed and whatnot, but love to hear more about the work. Yeah, absolutely.
So to you, Mayor Pileski, and the village and the Board of Trustees. Roselle Sister City Association is proud to announce that we won the 2020 Illinois Sister City of the Year Award. And on behalf of the RSCA, we would like to dedicate this plaque to all Roselle, the residents, businesses, police, fire, village workers, and community organizations. Sister Cities is a people-to-people, city-to-city, nonpartisan organization that promotes peace and mutual understanding on an international level. The RSCA has worked abroad as well as right at home in Roselle to serve its citizens. Presently, we have a sister city in Bochnia, Poland, a friendship city with Lodz in Germany, and there are 2 committees pursuing relationships with Italy and India. We hope you have a prominent place in the village to display this plaque, and we look forward to being a part of the centennial in 2022. So I would like you to present you, Mayor, with plaque.
And we'll exchange hardware, so we don't want to leave you empty-handed. So, we really appreciate all the first do this one. We really appreciate this. And we're working on doing an award display in the atrium, so anyone who comes to the village can see. But we want to give you this certificate of recognition as well. We don't want you to leave empty-handed. This is a huge achievement for you guys. Absolutely. You want to do it here?
As we all spread. You should be in there.
No.
Yeah, no. you should
No,
be
no,
in
no,
there.
no, no, no. You guys did it.
Congratulations. And then next, it's my privilege to invite the Lions Club up, as well as our fire chief and, or our police chief and deputy chief first to do our Officer of the Year 2019 and 2020 awards. So I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. 30 years ago, I attended a Lions Club tried to start a similar banquet. We had very little response. Doing that, we started doing police officer work once a year here in village. So last year, if you remember, there was something going on that kind of kept us from meeting. So we have an award from last year. Like, police officer year of 2019. Wade Hartman.
It's the alternate.
You don't have to hide now. You're not gonna see you.
Thank you.
You go, "Is that a moon right here?"
Do whatever you want.
No, these are three people, three. Police officers. In my all my years, I've worked with many, many of the fire. And I didn't find any holiday. Appreciate what
Absolutely. I think we'll have the chief and the deputy chief just say a few words about our recipients tonight.
I can. I'd love to talk about our police officers because I know all the firemen are here, firefighters, because you love to hear about really good policemen. So let me just tell you a couple of things. First, I'd like to start with Officer Hartman. So Detective Hartman was actually brought on to the department in 2003. He was promoted to detective in 2015. In 2020, he was nominated by Detective Sergeant and the Deputy Chief for his ongoing work that he had done. In 2019, we were plagued with a homicide. Detective Hartman actually stepped up and was very instrumental in writing a lot of search warrants, a lot of subpoenas, a lot of information. Well, in 2019, pretty much alone, he identified 4 suspects who had committed as much as 2 murders. These were in DuPage, Cook, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Wilton. The good part is on those, he was able to take those into custody, and they're currently in custody. So congratulations to you. And next one is Khaled Dalal. That year, he's a little bit of a puppy, considerably to the Detective Department. He came out of a dog handler, so everybody's a puppy that's younger than me. So in July of 2014, Khaled came on board. So in that short amount of time, Khaled has done quite a bit. So a little bit of a highlight. He's currently assigned to the NICAS Mobile Field Force. So he's those guys who go out in the purple suits that protect us against all those riders in the last couple of years. That's what he does. It's one of his other jobs. He's a police officer first, but he does that. He's also a field training officer. He's also one of the lead instructors for Alice. Alice is the fighter response, right? Somebody comes in, active shooter. He teaches that to businesses and schools and all throughout the community. He's also a recent recipient of the Life Saving Award. He was given a Life Saving Award not only by the police department, but also by the fire department. He also recently apprehended an armed robbery suspect who had just committed an armed robbery. He was in the process of committing the armed robbery. Officer Dalal took him into custody. The gentleman pled guilty and was sentenced to 21 years in the state penitentiary. That's because of the great work that he's done. So not only did he do that, but on his spare time, because he's got a lot of spare time, he's a new father as well, which we know doesn't cause any problems, right? But he also does our St. Paul's fundraising. He's done that for the last few years, and he's raised over $16,000 that has gone directly to St. Paul's race. So kudos to you. In here, I have a statement that if you're looking for what is a good recipe for an American police officer, it's this gentleman right here. It's both of these gentlemen. They're the ones, if you look at their careers, if you look at how they treat people, how the respect that they have internally and externally, that's the mix. That's the people you want to see in American law enforcement. So congratulations, Colin.
Deputy Fire Chief, kind of different role because generally the fire chief is up here talking to somebody. But as you know, Chief Mark Ozick is the firefighter of the year in 2020. I first would like to thank the Lions Club for all you do, working with us from time to time. I'm just grateful for that. And very important for you to come over and give some professional plaques and really appreciate it. Always supporting. Chief Ozick was chosen from an internal vote from the officer group. This is the first time the award has been given to a fire chief since the award's been given out. He was promoted to the rank of fire chief in 2020 after serving as deputy fire chief for 4 years. He has over 30 years of fire service experience and is highly respected among his peers. 2020 was, as we know, a unique year, and Chief Ozick's leadership was critical in dealing with various challenges within the department and the ability to job. His accomplishments include, certainly not limited to, but evaluating staffing, implementing a plan to support organization needs, the testing and eventual promotion of the deputy fire chief, battalion chief and 3 lieutenants. It was the largest promotional event in the department's history. Leadership with COVID-19 pandemic, maintaining the health and safety of employees by also serving community needs during a challenging time, providing ongoing information and available resources to the village employees and to our residents, coordinated distribution of COVID vaccine among first responders and local public vaccine events, provided leadership and guidance for fire department members during public protests, the evaluation, coordination, and ordering of new fire department rescue units, orchestration of a 2-year collective bargaining agreement extension with the Roseville Professional Firefighters Association, Local 4051, introduction of mental health training for all fire department members. Chief Ozick, in his free time, is very active in the following charities: Maddie's Mid-March, clothing and money to provide underprivileged individuals. This charity was started with Chief Ozick's daughter, Maddie, when she was just a little girl. He also took a lot of time in the Buddhist Brotherhood, which assists Illinois firefighters. This charity was started in memory of Chief Ozick's friend, Marco. The mentioned accomplishments are in addition to his daily duties as fire chief. Surely, he will be the first one to say he hasn't done it all wrong. However, his leadership has been critical for organizational success. Ozick provides the tools for personnel to succeed. He's a person who genuinely cares for those he serves. His contributions and commitment to excellence have earned this award. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you, Lions Club, and congratulations to each and every one of you. We've got a lot to celebrate in Roselle, and you guys are certainly at the top of that list, so thank you for all your service to our community. Before I pass it off to the trustees, just wanted to provide everyone visibility. I know we made a release Friday. We've been meeting with the owners and the property management company that's in charge of Spring Hill Apartments. And so we will continue to have and engage them in dialogue, but at this time, they have committed to making some improvements on the site that would help with some of the safety concerns that we have, including adding additional external lighting, as well as installing different cameras or other material to kind of help us with just monitoring the property in the long term. So the chief, the deputy chief and I have been feeling optimistic about the conversations, but we'll continue to engage them and make sure that we're seeing the progress that we expect to see to prevent something like this going on again. So I don't know, chief, at this time, is there anything that you want to provide an update on or can provide an update at this time, given the nature of the situation?
But our investigators are continuing with these.
Appreciate it. And as, of course, we are able to and allowed to, we will be providing information to the public and as well to the board. So with that being the case, is there any trustees that have a report tonight? Village clerk?
No report.
Village attorney?
Mayor, I have a couple of items tonight. First, agenda item 13A. It's the approval of the contract for improvements at the Public Works facility. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm recommending when that motion be approved, that it be characterized as a motion to waive competitive bidding and approve a resolution. The reason for that is that I believe this contract is consistent with state statute, but it includes a whole variety of different elements in it simultaneously. So the state statute doesn't fit well in terms of a puzzle into all of those pieces. I believe that it is fully legal. There's not a problem with it, but it contains elements of competitive bidding, design build, RFPs, and no bid elements. So as a consequence, I'm just recommending that so nobody can challenge it later if they believe that it doesn't comply with state statute. I believe that it does. The second thing is that paragraph 7 of that agreement entitled Compliance with Laws has provisions in it regarding the Prevailing Wage Act. Those provisions have been used by the village for years. They are no longer completely compliant in all circumstances with the Prevailing Wage Act, which has been amended by the state legislature to add responsibilities on municipalities that never previously existed. So I've rewritten that section now to be consistent with state law, and I'm going to tender that down to Patty. And then agenda item 13B in the now therefore provision. In the second line of the now therefore, strike the words to approve and insert in its place the word execute. And after the word purchase in the same line, add the word order. And that's completion of my report.
Thank you. Good way to clear the room too, apparently. So
That's what lawyers do. We clear rooms.
village administrator. All right, thank you so much. We'll now move to unfinished business. First, we have the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, or non-controversial in nature, and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no discussion of these items. Tonight, we have presentation approval of the village board meeting minutes of October 11th, 2021. Adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for licensed firework display services. Adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an interior-exterior improvement grant agreement between the village of Roselle and the property located at 101 East Irving Park Road. Adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an interior-exterior improvement grant agreement between the village of Roselle and property located at 2245 East Main Street. And adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign and the village clerk to attest to a right-of-way improvement agreement for 400 Roselle LLC. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. We'll now move to community development.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance authorizing execution of an amendment to the annexation agreement for 7 North 601 Rodenberg Road.
There's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Roll call
Oh,
here.
thank you. Roll call.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Burkowski.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
That motion carries.
So I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance approving a final development plan for a planned unit development in the R3 General Residence District for Timberleaf.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Burkowski.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Then I'd like to make the motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign and the village clerk to attest to the subdivision improvement agreement for Timberleaf.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance granting a special use permit for a daycare center at 1080 West Lake Street in the B5 Arterial Business District.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
And Trustee Burkowski.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Finally, I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance granting a parking variation to permit 21 parking spaces in lieu of 28 spaces required by Section 11.05B of the Village of Roselle zoning ordinance.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Burkowski.
Aye.
Delapenna.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, nothing else for community development.
Thank you so much. We have nothing under administration, fire, or police tonight. Public Works, Trustee Domke.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the prevailing competitive bidding process and adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with FH Fashion Contractors for the Public Works Building improvements in the amount of $692,683.41 through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance joint bid.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Burkowski.
Aye.
And Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Yes, I'd also like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of SCADA software from Tri-R Systems Incorporated in the amount of $36,400.
Second.
Any discussion? See none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Finance, Trustee Domke, could you cover that tonight?
Sure will. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable list for October 25th, 2021 in the amount of $1,233,661.06.
Second.
Any discussion on the bills list? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries.
And I would also like to make a motion to adopt a resolution regarding the proposed 2021 property tax levy for the Village of Roselle.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries.
That's it for the money giveaway today, bro.
All right. We'll move to new business. As we do, we have a second opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone that wishes to provide a comment at this time, you are free to do so at this time. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll move to our first item under new business, pre-annexation discussion for 6 North 736 and 6 North 744.
Thank you. So this is a continuation of this conversation that the board started earlier this year relative to a pre-annexation being sought. by the property on Medina Road, currently home to 4 Points Saloon, as well as the post office. They're a tenant of the property owners, of the property owner who owns those 2 parcels. His counsel is here to kind of talk to the board about kind of a formal response from the initial proposed pre-annexation terms that were proposed to them. I attached that as an exhibit to my memo to remind kind of the board where things started. And where we're currently at now is there is a third party involved, Chevron, that's been part of these conversations. So obviously, at the end of the day, any annexation agreement would be between the village and the property owner. Chevron has an interest in it because they're providing some financial contributions. And it's my understanding that they've agreed to the terms of year 1 through 10. That was the direction that the board gave to staff, and paying the present value of that. I think at that board meeting in March, some trustees were open to considering a lump sum in lieu of kind of annual payments for some of this. And that's basically what they've come back with, is willing to pay for the water main, the lift station, the Devlin expansion, and provide kind of that present value for that. So really, it's kind of years 11 through 20, if you will. An annexation agreement can be as long as, or up to 20 years maximum if agreed to by both parties. So it could be something less than 20 years if the board wanted to consider that as part of an annexation agreement. Jim will tell you what can't be in there. A lot of things can be, particularly if you're interested in obtaining some additional financial contribution from the property owner. It's not often that you consider commercial properties as part of pre-annexations. Typically they're homes and they're connecting to water, sewer. The only other example that we really had was Coach House back in the day, had a pre-annexation agreement. There was an annual contribution made by that owner to the village for the duration of that agreement. And that's kind of the methodology that was used to come up with this. That was really the only other kind of example we had. So it does outline, as proposed, some additional financial contributions that I think you're kind of now between Chevron has drawn a line in the sand on what they're willing to pay. And now I think the property owner should come up here and present to the board their position on it. And then you can maybe have we can have some discussion around where you want to go from here and give staff some additional direction to continue to work on this or not. If that's okay, Mayor, if you want me to, unless there's any first questions of me or of Karen Bricks, of other staff related to this issue tonight, knowing it started with, the old board.
Yeah, any immediate questions for Jason before we hear from the property owner? All right, then I'd say let's have the property owner or council of property owner come up and we can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk and Board of Trustees, Michael Hovde, Hovde, and Mr. Knippen, Village Attorney. I'm the attorney for the property owner. So this is a little bit of an unusual situation because many times you have somebody coming to you looking for water or sewer to improve their property or because they have a problem. In this case, Chevron, who did not own our property previously, has contaminated much of the area, and the contamination's moving towards our well. So the EPA has told them they need to remediate this. And I'm not an engineer, but apparently the only way to remediate it is to get rid of the well and hook up to municipal water. So we're a little bit of an innocent party here that, somebody's contaminated our well, and this seems to be the way to do it. So Chevron's really been taking the lead in this. I do have one point. I had some good conversations with Jason, who's been very helpful. One thing that maybe I didn't convey properly to him, Chevron didn't indicate they weren't willing to pay after year 10. They indicated they didn't understand what those charges were for. And unless they had a good explanation, they couldn't justify paying them. So they didn't see anything in the engineering or other costs. So if there was a good justification, they were not saying they weren't willing to pay, just they said there was no explanation for what those charges were. And that's kind of where my client is that, we're kind of, Chevron's supposed to pay for this and, get our well moving out of the way. And these dollars are here and we really don't know what they're for. So certainly willing to listen to suggestions. Jason's got a few here, but one item would be if you could further explain them to satisfy Chevron, they'd be willing, I believe, to pay. So do you have any questions? Or?
And I guess on that point, I assume Chevron's willingness is dependent on it being related to site remediation, correct? And not the usage of the site itself.
Well, not,
fair to
not
say?
usage as far as, the volume of usage, but as far as the impact to the village, as far as, future maintenance or, things related to the system. I can't speak for them as to what they would agree to. They have more money than all of us put together. So the way they got that is by not giving it away, apparently. My clients, one of their issues with the number was that they weren't really sure what it was for. And if, 5 years from now, the business isn't going so good and they go to close it, now they've got a number hanging over their head that's like a second mortgage on the property. They are going to be paying an increased amount, I believe, in sewer and water usage. Certainly one option would be to leave kind of an open end there, that if the use changes or the volume changes, that there would be, a reopening of negotiations as far as impact to the village. But that's what I'm here for today. They'd really like to move this forward. Chevron's working with Itasca on the other corner because that property's also been contaminated. So they're trying to just get out. They can't move these wells anymore. There's not enough space. So any questions or comments?
So, yeah, I'll open up it to the board at this point. Any comments or questions from the group? Wayne?
I just want to ask, is Chevron, did they take the tanks out of the ground?
I believe these tanks are gone. This was a predecessor to Chevron, so it may have been a Marathon or something previously.
No new contaminations coming on. It's what they've done.
This is-
how it
yeah.
permeated into the ground.
As far as the reports I've seen, this is sort of, so my bad example is if you look at a topographical map and it shows you all the contours, imagine that's underground and they have this blob that just seems to be moving in certain different ways. So it's in the soil, and I think short of, maybe excavating several hundred feet down for a 8-block area, I don't think they can get rid of it all. So the easy fix is not easy fix, but the most
Economical.
fix. Not even economical, because I don't even know if you can logistically dig up that much dirt,
The only fix.
is to hook it up.
It's really the only fix. I don't see how else you're going to get that done.
Right, I think, yeah. So they've, committed to basically, continuing water service to the people that they've contaminated. And they're responsible, and EPA has told them they have to do that. Roselle's the most likely and the closest. It also does give the village a commercial foothold onto Medina Road. And also the post office building as well, which, who knows where
And
the
then
post office will
other
be.
people that live along Irving Park heading west that are in unincorporated could have the same problem with their wells.
They could,
This is moving.
it's moving. I don't know how quickly it's moving. It's possibility, Lake Park. I'm trying to think if there's any other residential to the west on,
Even to the south on Medina Road, there's a couple more properties. Isn't there before the post office or no, there's.
no, there's auto, yeah, there's an auto use on the either corner, the insurance, then the train tracks. So there's not a lot there than Lake Park High School.
Going south.
Right, even going south that you have the tracks and multiple feet there.
Any other thoughts or questions from the board? Lee?
No, I mean, I think what you brought up earlier about if the usage changes, I mean, I'd like to see something in there, because obviously, if we have this agreement, and there's, let's just say like a condo building or something that's, 5 floors that wants to go there, and there's more of an impact to the village, I think there should be something in there to call that out. When I was reading this too, like I wasn't really tying this money from year 11 to year 20 to anything either. So, I mean, open to hearing more if there is something to Mr. Havdi's point regarding future maintenance or whatever, if there's an argument to be made to Chevron to pay that money. And then the only other thing I was thinking was, in lieu of the money from 11 to 20, if there's a way to impose like the eating establishment tax on the business. I get that they're not fully annexed into Roselle, but I'm not even sure if that's allowed legally or not. So,
Jim, does that fall in the yes or no bucket?
That is something you could probably do from a contractual standpoint, but it will expire when the contract expires. So if
Okay.
it's a 20-year annexation agreement, you could have it in there and extend it out over that period of time. But once the agreement expires, other than public improvements like sewers and things like that, they don't extend beyond the 20 years. So yeah, you could impose it in the contract, but not by ordinance, clearly. So that would be the way to do it, but it would expire when the contract expires.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of doing that to, just basically we're saying that, I mean, essentially a pre-annexation is essentially us saying like, hey, we want you in the village. And the only reason why we're not doing the full annexation now is because we can't. And so if you want to be part of the village eventually, and you're basically a competing business to a current village business, I would just impose that restaurant tax on them, the 1.25%, in lieu of these 11 to 20 charges, unless if they're justifiable. But in that case, I would still do the tax, but then make Chevron pay the fees from 11 to 20 if they're
I
justifiable.
just want to understand something related to that, though. Are you talking about 1.5% tax on all of their retail sales or on the sales of food?
Just the eating
Food
establishment.
mart, just, yeah, but are they an eating establishment at that point? And if they are, then you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So it's a salon, bar, restaurant.
That's what you're talking
Just to
about, okay.
clarify,
About, you know,
Post office.
They used to have a retail component back when I went to Lake Park. It was called, they had a little store there.
and Jim, just to,
which great parts out of the, gas station.
just to confirm, it wouldn't necessarily be the village imposing a tax on them. It would be them agreeing to pay
Contractual fee.
equal to 1% of their sales or whatever in lieu of a tax, right? Just to clarify that. Okay.
That's correct. That's the way it'd be structured.
But I don't want to put Jim on the spot. Do you know, would that be a tax deductible expense for them?
I would assume so.
How does the board feel about that?
I guess I'm back to Lee's first question. What, if someone can explain 11 through 20 here?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of that Coach House paid 10 grand to the village annually. And because I think they were a business and at the time the board, so we can't tell Chevron it's for water and sewer related. We've said it's, it's really there, the value, the cost of being connected as a commercial business in the village of Roselle in line with how it was done with the Coach House. At that time, I think it was tied to police services because they were a drain on police, even though they were unincorporated. I think that was kind of the nexus for that one. Might be a little harder to find the nexus for this one. But that's just, it's a annexation, so you could establish whatever terms you want. And I think I'm safe to say the prior mayor wanted to see that in there. So staff presented it accordingly.
Do they also pay that to the county?
They pay, I'm not sure that I don't know if there's a separate food and beverage tax
Yeah,
for the
that's what I'm
county.
asking. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, they certainly pay the
There's
sales
obviously-
tax.
Yeah, there's obviously an accounting element to that.
Yeah, we're not aware of an eating establishment or food or beverage tax at,
The village.
levied at the county.
Audit
Yeah.
for-
Just regular sales tax, 1% that they would receive.
And I think Bruce, to your point, like, I don't want to speak for Andy, but I think the intent of trying to account for the revenue the village is not getting for it not being officially annexed was his intent. And I think what Lee is suggesting gets to that intent, but maybe in a different way. So, but
That I do have one other question. Knowing the Coach House and the challenges that the police department had, Chief, is that anything we would have to deal with over there? And is there and if so, is there anything that kind of mimics that situation that we've had experience from the Coach House? Okay, because that was a fairly significant drain, especially with their hours. So with that, I would align with Lee's suggestion of a 1% contract fee versus the 11 through 20. The owners are agreeable to that.
Tom B, are you in alignment with that? Tom
I
D?
have one question.
Yeah.
Do we know, or is there a way to find out how much the value of that property will go up when it's hooked up to the sewers?
I'm not an appraiser.
Could we find out a rough number? Because maybe we could make a share of that.
Yeah,
those 10 through
I
20.
don't, I guess you would assume that a property has adequate sewer and water when you value it. So whether it has municipal sewer and water or a clean well and septic system, I don't know what difference.
But this one doesn't have a clean well and septic right now.
Well, it does right now, it just won't, if it wasn't clean, they wouldn't be operating. It is something that is on the way, and because the EPA makes them monitor it, they see it moving towards that, and Chevron being, after the fact, a good corporate citizen, they're trying to get ahead of this rather than poisoning people like maybe some other companies and other jurisdictions have done. They're ahead of the game here.
I would think most of us would agree it will go up.
It could, I guess if you talk about a commercial appraisal, I think they're going to be $3,000 or $4,000. So I don't know if that's I'd rather have the village have that money than my client to spend it.
I'm just thinking that might be something that we could share, and if we could get a rough number of that could go for year 10 through 20.
Yeah. Well, so just to reiterate, we're here because Chevron's contamination's coming towards us. They're trying to make us whole so that we can continue to use the post office property and the 4 Points property. So these dollars you're talking about are going to come out of the property owner's pocket. So it's almost like your neighbor, poured oil in your driveway, they cleaned it up, but then you've got to pay, after the fact. So these numbers would all be coming out of the property owner's pocket, which I understand makes sense, but these are not coming from Chevron unless we can justify them. Then we all go home, let Chevron write a check, and we can all be done.
Easy solution.
Yeah.
So would
Told
you
them
be
I'm
open-
throwing them under the bus at the meetings.
Right.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Are you open to the sales tax idea though? Okay.
Yes.
Wayne, are you open to
Yes, I
that?
like that idea. By the way, that liquor license is for 2 o'clock over there at that?
It's, I don't know that the county has a distinction.
Not a 4 o'clock like Coach House.
And there's very few that have the 4 o'clocks. I think that those may have been old ones that just kept being renewed. I think,
It was a Cook County.
Cook County.
yeah, this is DuPage County. I don't know that it's any different than any other DuPage County unincorporated liquor license.
With residential, when they did a little appraisal, 1 to 2% would go down because it's well and septic.
So from your client's perspective, if we were to strike the fees that are listed for years 11 through 20, and we were to do a 1% eating establishment tax equivalent, essentially, is that something you think your client would be able to?
I can't say that they'd agree to it. I can tell you that we definitely would look at that. I don't know what the numbers look like.
Got it. That's fair.
And I don't know, when you say food and beverage, does that include liquor? Does that just include?
Correct.
food?
That would include liquor. And I think what we can do coming out of this is, Tom, I just asked that we could just send some of that information to Mr. Havdi so he can share that with his client so they can better understand the impact. And then I think, I guess the one pulse I want to just take with the board, given the situation for your client, if we reach an impasse on the sales tax compromise, are we holding the line there, or would we be open to maybe doing a shorter agreement to give us more time so they can move forward at least with the connection, and we can continue to negotiate the kind of outlier years and what the remediation is there? Is that something the board's open to? Okay.
I would look then, if that's the case, because then your client can't see past 10 years, we can't see past 10 years. So then we would look for maybe an agreement that expires in 10 years instead of 20.
Right. Yeah, and their concern was real world concern with, coming out of COVID, running a restaurant has not been the most fruitful operation. So you don't look at, hey, 20 years from now, am I still running this place when I'm in my 50s, right? You figure at some point you're going to move it over. And if there's a second mortgage in effect of 160,000 sitting on the property that goes with your sale, that might make your business not be marketable at some point. So that's what they were looking.
But in this suggestion that we're having, if we go to the 20 years and his resident restaurant is not doing well, then his 1% would also.
Right, yeah, the 1% seems to, so that would
So
definitely,
therefore,
yeah.
I think that would be the area I would rather go
I agree.
as much as we can, but if not, then we.
1%
duration.
I think is a great second position. The first is if we could explain it to Chevron, they write a check and we all go home.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be the case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Lee?
Just 2 things for clarity. I think our eating establishment tax is 1.25, I believe. Is that correct? So I would say the 1.25 versus the 1. And then the only other thing I would say is in the agreement about if the usage of the property actually changes, I think we should have that in there as well.
Yep, 100% agree.
Any additional impact to the village.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they would have to amend the annexation agreement if there's a change in use in all probability, but it's still a good idea to have it in there, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's easy. I think for all of us to agree to. Tom, P, good?
I agree with the continuing negotiations that we shouldn't hold the line on the eating tax and consider, shorter agreements, things like that.
Wayne?
I just want to ask one question. I don't understand. Chevron caused this problem.
Correct.
Are they just looking to throw some money at it and walk away? And then this time bomb goes off 12 years from now when we try and annex some other property?
So I think that's an EPA question. So as far as I understand it, and I'm not an environmental lawyer, the EPA is already involved in this. And as part of their monitoring the situation, this is something they've told them they have to do. So I don't think it's a question of they throw money at it and they wash their hands and walk away. They certainly will walk away from the problem of this well, which is in other properties, they've proposed moving the well. And then they move it again 5 years later, and then they run out of places to move it, and then they have to, hook up to water or sewer, or abandon the property. Basically, is what they would end up doing. So I can't give you the exact environmental answer, but from what I've learned in this process, the EPA is monitoring this, so I wouldn't think they would be walking away.
Tom, you're in alignment with what we're going. So I think staff, you've got enough direction, hopefully. So I think we would first do our due diligence just to see if we can explain any of the amounts from 11 through 20 related to stormwater, sewer, all the above. And if we cannot, then let's go down to considering the eating establishment tax route. And then if we, depending on feedback from the property owner, if that becomes an impasse, we're ready to go forward with the 10-year agreement, at least just to get this ball rolling, get Chevron's payment done so we can do the improvements, and then we'll revisit as needed. So with the return to the table should a redevelopment occur. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great meeting, by the way.
Well, we're not done quite yet. So we have got an exciting recapture agreement conversation coming up. So stay tuned for more. So Jason.
Where do I start? Well, Karen and Tom are here to help back me up on any of this. So I think, long story short, what I'd like to get out of the board tonight is just some high-level direction about recaptures, kind of conceptually, third rails to them. What are you interested in learning more about or not, since this won't be necessarily resolved tonight. But, I kind of provided in there what recaptures are. This has come up really as part of annexations, connection to water and sewer utilities are the ones that typically trigger these requirements under these recaptures. As I've shown in the spreadsheet, we've had quite a few of them over the years. Several large ones are still in place today. And I think some of the key takeaways are, this used to be up until Tom took on a lot of this electronically, got this into a spreadsheet. This was a manual paper process that between the clerk's office, the planning department, has not been ideally managed by it not being in an electronic format. We don't have a whole lot of records going back that far to show who's paid or who's not. Certainly, we do have records to generally know when properties trigger a recapture. So Tom's gotten them basically all into a spreadsheet. We hope then, depending on further direction from the board, the next steps would be getting that into Munis. So it's tied to a property, an address. So if someone comes in for a building permit, annexation, it triggers it. We have it as a layer in GIS so we can click on a parcel and know a recapture's in place, the ordinance number, the dollar amount associated with it. So we're getting there. And I think to me, that's the big takeaway I want to get out of this exercise is, as staff and other people have changed over the years since 1970 with technology, I don't see a reason that this can't be a little more thoroughly managed through electronic instead of paper. And with that, I highlighted some of these recaptures just based on kind of that initial upfront cost that the village in most cases, I think it was out of the village's pocket. There was litigation involved and other stuff where developers may have fronted some of the money and then the village assumed some of the liabilities moving forward. But to me, some of this is then part of that bigger picture of annexations, incentives, or eliminating barriers to annexation. Some of these recaptures are significant, $20,000+. Previous boards have waived some of those as part of annexation, so there is a history to kind of reduce some of those as a means to soften or to encourage annexation instead of some of properties continuing to just operate in an unincorporated fashion. So I think for tonight, the board is, are you open to considering, reducing, eliminating some of these recaptures in the spirit of reducing administrative kind of time, the record keeping? In some of the cases, you've recouped more money than the original upfront cost because of interest fees and stuff like that. I think there's certain strategic areas in town that maybe you want to look at some of the recaptures and determine if by playing with those, you could incentivize annexation. This kind of started too with 556 Lincoln and the sidewalk. I think they're subject to 3 recaptures, if I'm not mistaken. So they have 3 recaptures, and the majority of these large recaptures, when we're talking thousands of parcels, is really the Cook County part of town. And it has really to do with trunk lines going down Roselle Road, Nergy Road. This isn't even so much about water and sewer that they're tapped onto. This is just, eventually they'll have to pay for that. Eventually they'll have to connect. And on top of that, they have to pay for the fee for that to go down their street into this big trunk line to MWRD. I think they certainly served a purpose back in the 70s. I'm not sure that purpose and necessity is the same today as it maybe was then. And none of these, the revenue that people pay go into the water sewer extension fund. But outside of people paying us, we don't carry any of this on our books. So if the board chose for the public recaptures to reduce the amount, to cut anything, to waive, it wouldn't impact the village's budget in a direct way. So I'm happy to kind of answer any higher level questions about the recaptures. We're only talking, so I think from a direction standpoint, I'd really like to tackle the oldest, largest recaptures. I think some of the most recent ones are still too new, that I think you allow them to kind of remain untouched. Private recaptures, absent the private party agreeing to some sort of change to that recapture, those are kind of hands off because that's someone else's money that we're just collecting and passing through to them. So you can't unilaterally change that without agreement from the private property owners in those cases. So like I said, there's several that are kind of fully funded that are pretty darn close to being funded. And I think maybe with a little more time and work, we can kind of hone in on this. And David, I don't know if there's anything else.
I would just add, I think this really came out of the conversations that we didn't expect to be here, honestly, with that Lincoln annexation. A lot of the feedback was that it's really expensive to annex, and we started to uncover, and be careful what you wish for, because we started pulling on a thread that wove an amazing tapestry of things going on behind the scenes. And so I think, this helps us understand, this is a starting point, but a lot of the things that we talked about in that situation, not all of it, but a decent chunk of it comes back to this policy and what do we want to do as a board. So I think to Jason's point, ask questions so that you understand, because I think ideally we want to give a recommendation to have a working group be formed, because this is complex, and for us all to solve this right now on the dais would be futile, I think. But figuring out where is our appetite, what do we want to do, and have a group work on the policy on the side and bring that back to us so we can have something that we can work on and provide feedback on. So any questions or thoughts on how we should go about evaluating them? Lee?
Quick question. What are these that are highlighted in yellow?
Yeah, so I highlight them just more as kind of the more significant ones, I guess, from the largest ones being the 1,028 parcels. Some of them are at or exceed 100%. So I think some of these are highlighted. You've already recaptured the upfront cost, but there's still people who owe recapture. So to me, I think these are some of the lowest hanging fruit of all of the recaptures, and just highlighting the percentage that has been recovered. And then just kind of the sheer volume, I didn't kind of add that in as a key. It was, so that's why I just highlight them. I just think they're kind of, they represent the biggest issue I think we're trying to tackle with the recaptures.
Is the recapture a net number or does it index with interest every year too?
So the upfront cost of a recapture was a fixed number. It cost $500,000 to put something in. In many of these recaptures, interest was kind of early on. I have to imagine boards back then did not think we'd be here today talking about these. They probably thought, oh, 5 years of high interest, that people will just get in here and sign on and connect. And then there's bankrupt developers that were part of this. Several of these recaptures, it appears that developers contributed to settle up some of that litigation. Instead of them owning it, the village said, we'll take it on, but you'll give us 200,000. There were some memos and some other stuff, agreements between the village and developers. So I think a lot of these, a good chunk of the money was collected early on, and it just, not much has happened since then. Is that correct?
I guess from my perspective is first get it into electronic format. That's a done deal. Then I'm trying to understand why some of these are yellow. And I heard what you said, but like I looked at one right above one that's not, that's 88 and 13. So, why wouldn't that then right above the 103, why
sorry.
wouldn't something like that fall into the mix? And then I would look at maybe if we're going to have some sort of working group, you talked about we can't touch the private ones, so let's just take them out of this mix because it just adds more lines to a row that we don't need to look at. And then really to help give us an idea of what is it we're trying to accomplish. So like if I see something that's 111%, so obviously I could close that because it's paid off and then take that 11% and apply it somewhere. That would be my first thinking. But until we actually sit down and talk through this, which as you said, Mayor, is not something we can do here, I would like to kind of maybe hone that list down, figure out which ones are actionable, and then what is the, direction that we want to take and bring back to this board.
It sounds like and I agree with your sentiment, but you're open to there being some policy that it leaves us open to closing or forgiving some of these instead of status quo. So needing investigation, correct?
Yes.
Lee?
One thing I would say, and obviously, as you said, there's going to be a work group formed, but I don't know if I would necessarily take out the private recaptures. I know we can't waive them, but I do think as a matter of fairness, if we're going to waive a bunch of recaptures just because we own them, that we should potentially take on and pay off the private recaptures potentially. And depending on, the final direction, but I would say if we're just going to say, hey, any public recapture we're going to waive, I don't really think that's fair because I know the last time we approved a recapture was just like our decision, whether it was public or private. So I wouldn't want that to be sort of held against people that live in this area with the private recapture now if we end up forgiving things. So I don't know that I would totally take the private recapture off the table just yet.
I guess maybe my point was, I don't want to have those are two separate conversations.
Fair. I just want to
So-
make sure that we don't totally just
Get them out of the group.
analysis,
So
yeah.
The initial analysis, let's get that. Then once we have it, then we can always apply that analysis to the private. But that just adds another level of complexity that I just don't think we need to have at this moment.
Yeah, Wayne.
My simple thinking of this is that the reason there's so many inconsistencies is because we had so many different rules and ideas, and we weren't like uniformed in what we did constantly. If this recapture means that people owe us money, if we're gonna let them off the hook, then just let everybody off the hook. Don't just pick and choose. Or we go back and we make everybody pay what they should be paying.
Yeah, and I don't know, they don't owe, I mean, conditions have to be met to have to pay any of this. Since some of this actually happening means basically a lot of areas that aren't anywhere near being contiguous with Roselle, wouldn't really be paying anything under these recaptures. So they're all triggered by something, and basically they have to come into town or connect to water and sewer. So until that property happens, until that happens with that property, I wouldn't say they owe us anything. At least is how I look at it. Because right now it's a parcel, it's a pin, and it says this pin, when it does this, this, or this, owes this, this, or this. And a lot of these, I think, were really just pins, and there weren't even homes there. Yeah.
All right. I know, but like I lived in Medina, and in order to get hooked up to water and sewer, which didn't come, but when it was being proposed, it was 20 grand per owner. So had I gotten water and sewer, I would have owed $20,000 for 20 years with interest or whatever. And that was my obligation. I would have to pay that. And if I went to sell my house, that would be, I would have to pay that in order to sell my house. So that is what a recapture is, right? Are there people here that are getting away without paying?
No. To the best of our knowledge, no, based on the data we have.
Okay. Mhm, mhm. Let's see.
So then, Mr. Mayor, I think it's, as you continue to pull on these threads of this sweater, as you mentioned, it's just going to continue. Like, what are the dates of some of these? What are the triggers of some of these? When will these triggers ever occur? All of that needs to be analyzed
And I think
in a much further detail than we can go through here.
Recapture can be everywhere from $400 for some of these, $500 to, $30,000. So it's really a case by case basis. I think that this analysis kind of has to be taken, at least to better understand a few of these to kind of help frame that bigger policy.
I think mirroring your comments and what you said, Wayne, I think the idea is we have standardized a lot of these, at least in our more recent history. So we know there's more continuity, more equity, but when you're looking at a period that's this duration, a lot of the terms, conditions, they're all over the place. So you may owe money, but we can't necessarily pinpoint or exactly articulate the why to today's standards. And I think that's where we need to probably come up with a recommendation, even if it's simplifying and saying, a flat fee for anything that predates 1990, that's your recapture fee, and we're going to not worry about the details. Like, I think that's where that group needs to kind of weigh the costs and benefits to understand. And if we're serious about annexations based on what we just went through with Lincoln, I think this is it's painful, it's not fun, it's detailed oriented work, but we have to get this right. Otherwise, doesn't matter what's in the pre-annexation agreement if we can't get people to sign it because they can't afford it or they're confused why and all these other things along the way.
We could have a garage sale then. Knock on people's doors and say, look, we're gonna reduce your costs. If
Right.
you want to come knocking, if you want to pay now, we can get you connected.
Or if you want to get annexed.
Well, that's what I meant, but yes, you know, we can, to the example that you just gave, Tom, where someone thought, hey, if I would have done it 20 years ago, I'd have paid 4,000. We look at some of these things, all right, we're gonna turn the time back, but you got to do it within the next 30, 60 days. Otherwise, Mr. Mayor, my recommendation at this point is get the stuff into the database. This way we have all the data and have then the group just walk through with staff to try and figure out if we can bucket it in some way and
Mhm.
bring those buckets back to the board.
Absolutely. And my point of view would be to have community development and finance look at this. So Bruce, would you be willing to serve on that group? And I did talk to Cheryl, at least via text, and she'd be willing to, but I think that way we got both the finance and the economic development side of piece of it covered. And I don't think we should put a timeline on this because I want this to be thorough and done correctly. So, but we'll have under trustee reports, I just ask that you and Cheryl keep us apprised of anything and interesting things that Jason should include in our memos weekly. So. All right, thank you so much. Is there any other business for discussion tonight? Seeing none, we don't have any executive session tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Okay.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Yes.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? And we're adjourned at 8:10.